Let's go. It's time. Put on play pants.
All right, well, here we go. Welcome in for another edition of Play Pants. He's Jason Ginty. My name is Rod Ryan. This is episode 42. We'd like to thank our sponsor, piratesofthequarter.com, at Pirates of the Quarter. I was just in New Orleans, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We just got through Mardi Gras. It is the Lenten season if you are of the Catholic background. So maybe you gave something up, maybe you didn't. We can maybe get into some of that. Golf tournament is sold out, and I came up with a top 5. Jason, not a traditional top 5 favorite list that I'm looking for, though. You need to go back in your Jason Ginty history for this one. Are you ready?
You know what I am. This is gonna be cool, man, because as I've looked at it, I'm like, I don't remember buying that. I think there's some on here I don't think I have ever bought.
I have this weird, crazy memory about the music that I've purchased in my life and what I've owned in the past. So, in honor of 39 years ago today, 1983, CD players and compact discs were released for the first time in the U.S. So I have asked Jason, I gave him the homework assignment, first 45, first album, first cassette, first CD, first digital purchase. That's what's going to make up our top 5 today. Wow. So it'll be a 5 list of first physical music purchases.
This is going to be weird, man. This is going to be really weird because, well, we'll get into it. I don't want to spoil it right out of the gate. I want to wait. We'll tease it but some of this is going to be interesting. Some of it will be very interesting. You're going to be like, what the fuck? Why did you buy? What took you so long?
So how are you feeling after Mardi Gras? I mean, you did it up big. You had a couple of big weekends. I got to join you out there last weekend in New Orleans. And I have to say, Bacchus Sunday was just one of my absolute favorite days ever. I mean, we've partied before on Bacchus Sunday, and there's just something different. Like at Christmas, you know this, when you have a child, it just becomes about them. And you're Christmas, you think about getting gifts and everything. And then Christmas, you have a kid, you just want them, you want to watch them open up their gifts. And Bacchus Sunday, my kid had gone to Mardi Gras before, but was way too young. And to see her running around on Bacchus Sunday, it was like Christmas and everything all rolled into one. It was absolutely a totally different experience. I didn't get flat out, blackout wasted. And it still was probably my favorite, best Bacchus Sunday of my life.
It was so great because, I texted you like 2 weeks ago. I said, okay, Bacchus Sunday, that's going to be our day. We'll hang out on St. Charles Avenue, watch about 4 or 5 different parades roll by, and it's a blast. I said, oh, by the way, that Sunday's theme is gold, so make sure everybody shows up in a lot of gold stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can't you used to be able to just show up and watch a parade. No, man, now everyone dresses it up or puts some sort of weird spin on everything, and there's always a costume involved. And you're like, gold, done. And it's like, okay. I love that people from New Orleans who just go, you got this? Yeah, I got that in the attic probably somewhere. Yeah, I can do that. So pulling together a costume in this city is so easy now. Everybody shows up in gold, and it was great. And then we get on the avenue and the parades start rolling, and your kid just was like, yeah, let's do this. You could just see it on her face, like, what? Yeah, let's go. And then it was on. It was just on, picking the kid up, putting the kid down, picking the kid up, putting the kid down. I mean, that's a workout for a dude.
Yeah, it was a workout. It was so much fun, but it goes back to trying to explain to people that, Mardi Gras really can be like a family event. And I tried to capture that. I put up a video on our Rod Ryan Show Instagram and then on my personal Facebook page of just a video. It wasn't staged. It wasn't anything. It was just my kid taking off, skipping down the street. She was just so happy. There's so many kids outside in between the parades. And this, again, is uptown in New Orleans, uptown on St. Charles Avenue, which is, this beautiful, beautiful street, but it's miles long and it's just loaded with people. And it's like the world's biggest tailgate, and there's kids everywhere, and it's Sunday afternoon, and the weather was cooperating, which was amazing, right? So that added to the amazement of the day. But as we talked about, Bourbon Street, titties, getting wasted, that still exists, and that is a huge part of Mardi Gras. But if you want to get away from that and get out of the French Quarter and still and enjoy parades, it's such an unbelievable, amazing family atmosphere. And your mother-in-law had the quote of the weekend, and I did put that up on my Instagram, the @RodRyan Show. And it was Jason's mother-in-law that said, and she was gracious enough to allow us to, where she lives on St. Charles Avenue, we were able to kind of get some wristbands, go into her building, use her bathroom, which is key, right? And we were able to set up, and we had a little area. I mean, we were right on the avenue. But your mother-in-law, she saw it, she noticed, that London was having such a good time. And she said, you can take your child to Disney World. And, there's princesses and castles, and I'm sure she's all into that. But that's pretend. That's fake. She said, look around. This is real. And I just thought that was the way that she said it. It really made me stop in my tracks. And I looked around and I said, you're right. This is real. This is real. It's just real people, real families coming together, having a great time. It was awesome. I had a couple of beers and stuff, and I was eating junk food all day, but totally different experience from Mardi Gras in the past of, getting completely wasted and hammered and barfing on the street. Different and better. Just amazing. And thank you for getting us the passes and being down there. It really should be a bucket list for every single person. Do the Bourbon Street and the titties and the party, and it's awesome. Yeah. It is amazing. But then break out from that. You got to you got to spend your time in New Orleans. You got to spend it different ways. You got to get out of the Quarter. The Quarter is awesome. Take the pirate tour, do all of that. But then also venture out to, Frenchman Street. It doesn't have to be Mardi Gras, but venture out, and venture out to some other areas, because there is so much more than the French Quarter.
It's funny when you and I were sitting here talking about your kid and Mardi Gras and your Mardi Gras and your kid, and we're talking about it. No big deal. I'm sure there's people listening going, you took your kid to fucking Mardi Gras? What are you lunatics doing?
Oh, no, I heard from people. I absolutely heard from people that, and you're not wrong, because your whatever you have conjured up in your brain about Mardi Gras, it's probably pretty true, but it's not like that everywhere. I mean, Mardi Gras can be as wild or as mild as you want it to be. There's definitely different ways to do it.
And I tell people all the time, I said, I bring my kids to Mardi Gras. I've been bringing my kids to Mardi Gras since before they could walk. My daughter, I brought to Mardi Gras. I brought her to the parades, and, I'm holding on. I'm holding her up, catching beads. And, when you got a kid, you're catching good shit, because everyone wants to throw shit to kids. So it's great. Your kid you're pimping your kid out to catch good shit. That's what you're doing. You're a horrible dad. You're a horrible human doing that, but it's fun. And the kid loves it. And they get stuffed animals and all that shit. So I did that with my daughter from the time she was like 2. My son's born, and boom, he's out there, barely can walk, and we're holding him up, and you got the jackets on because it's freezing out sometimes. And now when he goes to Mardi Gras, he's got it, man. And when you go up and down the street, what's great about it is it's every walk of life. The whole city comes out there. There's people on where we stood on Bacchus Sunday. There's certain people out there, I only see them during Mardi Gras parades. The rest of the year, I just don't run into them. We don't keep in contact. Once in a while, I text, but that's it. But when I see them, I'm like, oh, dude, what's up? And we're all like just best friends on the avenue. We watch the parades for the couple of weekends. All right, see you next year or whatever, And what's great about it is you see families, all walks of life, every, economic standpoint, race, whatever. It's everybody, and everyone's throwing a football. If you don't get hit in the face with a football at least 5 or 6 times,
or a frisbee, or get whacked in the head with beads, or you know what I mean? Yeah, there's stuff whizzing by all the time, because there's downtime in between parades. There's downtime where just everybody that's on the sides just comes into the street, and then boom, everyone's just partying and dancing and drinking in the streets. And like you said, just stuff whizzing, flying by
everywhere, and nobody gives a shit. You get in the head, oh, dude, yo, sorry, man. Oh, it's all so cool here, man. And it's like, why isn't it like this all the time? Why is everybody not cool like this all the time? Because it's such a great moment, or a great couple of weekends. And I will say this,
everybody's on the exact same page. It's Mardi Gras. Everybody's in a good mood. You're right. I wish everybody just felt that way all the time, you know? Okay. Take what you felt on Bacchus Sunday. Bacchus is the name of the night parade, but everybody just calls it Bacchus. It's Bacchus Sunday. All the parades have different names, but if everybody could just take that energy, that amazing feeling of, like you said, you get hit in the head in the parade, you know, boom. And then, you know, my kid's throwing a hula hoop all over the place for hours and hitting people and strangers and everything. You know, if that had happened anywhere else, there would have been road rage, you know, like we talk about. And it's just everybody is so unbelievably chill and cool and amazing on that day.
And you just talk to people, and sometimes the conversations go great, sometimes they don't, you know. And as you walk up and down the street, it's just miles of the same damn thing happening up and down St. Charles Avenue, and it's unbelievable. And I will say this, I've not missed a Mardi Gras in 24, 25 years, whatever it's been. And this year was great in a lot of different ways, because we took last year off. There was no Mardi Gras last year. So you think about it, it's been almost 2 years since Mardi Gras has happened, you know? And the first weekend, which, you know, we have 2 weeks ago, we had a kind of a warm-up weekend, we like to call it. And then last weekend was the big weekend, of Mardi Gras weekend. And that first weekend, everyone's kind of like, yeah, we're going to have fun. Is this cool? Are we supposed to be doing this? You know, everyone was kind of like tippy-toeing around. And then after about 20 minutes of that first parade, it was on. It just became a high five hug fest everywhere, and people, big smiles. And it was just had a great positive vibe. You know how you go to some concerts and you walk in, you're like, oof, there's just a weird vibe in this show tonight. You know what I mean? Or other nights you're like, this is great. There's just this happy vibe. You know, you can tell when you walk into a party or a room, you just get it. And Mardi Gras was just on a different level this year. And I've talked to a lot of people about it, and they're all like, yeah, this year just felt, you were running into people you haven't seen in 2 years. I've talked to more people in the last 2 weeks than I've talked to in 2 years. You know what I mean? Face to face.
Right.
And it was such a great feeling. You were like, oh yeah, this was what it's like to be a freaking human being. I forgot.
And I think that's going to carry over into Jazz Fest in New Orleans. And
big time.
You know what it was like when Jazz Fest came back after the storm. You know, and everybody there and just coming together, and everybody had that shared experience because everybody went through that together, you know, similar in a way that we've all had to go through this pandemic together and no Jazz Fest, and they tried to schedule it and reschedule it and then move it to another month. So I think the vibe is going to be at an all-time high. And I think it's going to be packed because Mardi Gras was packed. I said the same thing about Galveston. Right. Galveston was absolutely packed. And I'm sure Three Doors Down had something to do with it. But still, it was packed. People were ready to party. So I'm predicting Jazz Fest this year is just going to be the same vibe. Unfortunately, it's probably going to bring out even more people. You know, and you got that first weekend with the Who and the Foo. That could get a little crazy out there.
What I was talking to a few people about, and I always go into Mardi Gras as it's going to be wild, it's going to be great, it's going to be messed up, it's going to be traffic sucks, everything. You know, there's issues.
I mean, like you had to do some driving, and you kind of carted us around, and you know, thank God that you know how to navigate the city so well. It's a lot of work. Okay. It's a lot of work. There's always, with all fun and games, there's always going to be some behind the scenes pain in the ass, and getting around town. I mean, like I was trying to get an Uber to get out of where we were so that you didn't have to drive London and I got bounced 4 times from my Uber. They're just like, fuck you. I'm not going down there. And now I'm like trapped uptown with my kid. I mean, I'm miles away from our condo. You know, I'm in big trouble, but I'm not stressing. It's just such a perfect day. I don't care. Somehow it's going to work out. But there is some stress behind the scenes, but it makes it all worth it though.
And I think talking to people, it's like, I really, you know, I like Mardi Gras. You know, people always ask, who do you like better, Mardi Gras or Jazz Fest? And I'm like, it's like asking which kid you like better. It's, you know, they're different. You like them both for their own individual reasons. You know what I mean? And I love Mardi Gras and I love Jazz Fest, but I am looking to Jazz Fest like it's going to be weird because Jazz Fest has got a very cool vibe. It's almost like everybody ate the brownies on the way in. You know what I mean? And everyone's got a more relaxed vibe. Everything's cool. You got music. And it's just a different thing. Mardi Gras is like, it's like sensory overload. Where Jazz Fest, you're just chilling. I'm really, really looking forward to Jazz Fest. I told my wife, I said, man, I'm going to be bawling like a little girl walking in. Like when I go through the gate for the first time,
like we're back.
I'm like, okay, now we're back. If I'm going to Jazz Fest, we are back, man. So, but Mardi Gras was just great this year. It just was now, you always want to see the economic impact of it. At least New Orleans does, because that's a big, that's a monster for making money for our city. I don't think it'll go down as a huge one. It'll go down as a good one. Because, a lot of people probably are like, nah, I'm going to hold off on this year. I'm like, let's see how they do. Let's let the crazy people do Mardi Gras, travel there. And then next year I'll go if everything's okay. I think we still did well. The crowds were great, but this was by no means a monster Mardi Gras as far as.
I still think there's going to be some record numbers for Jazz Fest this year. Jazz Fest, by the way, nojazzfest.com. It's like we work for them. They should at least shoot us a couple of tickets for the fucking plugs. Friday, April 29th is when it starts. And then it ends on Sunday, May 8th. So it's 2 weekends. And that is my favorite thing. I haven't always made it in for Mardi Gras in New Orleans. I've made it back. I've been gone 18 years now. So I've made it back in for almost all of them. Jazz Fest, I think I've only missed once. I mean, that I don't miss. That I just absolutely do not ever miss a Jazz Fest. And I said that first weekend, Foo Fighters and The Who are playing. So that would be the first weekend. So again, it starts Friday, April 29th. You can buy single days. And again, if they want to shoot us a couple of tickets, if they want to sponsor this podcast, they could. Your wife knows how to do it very well, how to do Mardi Gras. And she, took London under her wing, and, she's yelling at all the floats. I mean, first time. It wasn't her first time, but it was her first time, first Mardi Gras. She was working it. My kid was just getting rained on, okay, with stuff. And, the whole thing of the parades, you're caught up in it. You're trying to get free shit. And then at the end of the day, you look at all this free shit. You're like, number one, what am I going to do with all this stuff? But for a kid, my kid, who's going to be 4, it's amazing. We're filling up these huge bags. Beads are heavy, man. Mm-hmm. And when I say huge bags, I'm talking about like crawfish bags. Okay. So like I think about a 30, 40 pound sack of crawfish. We're filling up bead bags like that, but full of all trinkets and everything. And now you got to haul this shit. And so not only did I haul a bunch of shit back, thanks to you, and we loaded up your trunk, and we drove back down to the French Quarter. But then London and I have to fly back to Houston. Let me tell you, some major decisions needed to be made. Yeah. I had to tell her, look, I got one blue bag, which was probably about maybe a 20-pound bag, thinking crawfish again. And I said, okay, we can fill this up. We got tough decisions to make. So now I'm holding up a dolphin, and you get a lot of the floats. They'll throw like stuffed animals to the little kids, and it's more than just beads. It's hard to explain. There's just all sorts of little tchotchkes that they throw out, trinkets and stuff. Yeah. So now I got everything laid out on the table. I mean, we laid out everything on our huge Last Supper Jesus table, and it's full of shit, stuff that we caught and dragged to the condo. Now it's item by item, Jason.
Oh,
okay.
My God.
Here's the frog. Here's Mr. Turtle. Which one you like better? Turtle? Okay, frog over here. Okay, now turtle or these big red plushy lips? Okay, you like the lips? Okay, great. Boom, boom, boom. Dude, it was some major decision making going on, and we did get it down to one bag of stuff, and then there's a ton of stuff that I'll keep it at the condo because it doesn't matter all year round. She just likes throwing it off the balcony to people. But we had major decisions to make what we were bringing home. I was not hauling all those fucking beads, and thank God she's not that excited about the beads. It's all the stuff. And thank God, stuffed animals aren't that heavy, but it's just blinky, plasticky things, pretend trumpets and kazoos and everything, just stuffing it in this bag. God, we had so much stuff. I don't remember getting that much stuff before.
But what's great about it is, especially with your situation with the condo, it'll be there it'll be like all new stuff when she comes back next time. She'll be, this is great.
She'll want to get into it and play with it. So everybody, bucket list. Mardi Gras, you can do it with a family, and you can tailor You can tailor your Mardi Gras experience to exactly how you want to do it. If you want to go full on fucking balls out, titties, beads, then Bourbon Street and the French Quarter is definitely the place to be. And it's awesome. It's wall to wall people. And it's, it's that kind of party. And that if that's the energy you're looking for, but then there's different energies, that's why some people, you go out to like Metairie, which is, like a neighboring city. They've got their own parades there, and that's all families,
Right.
and it's just, there's different energy around the city.
I just love all of it. I do. I really love all of it. And this a few years ago, I somehow, and the story's crazy, right? So you and I have ridden on a pirate ship in the Crew of Tucks parade that goes down St. Charles Avenue. So we're actually this was our 6th year riding on the pirate ship. We are part of Mardi Gras. Okay.
Yeah.
To explain to people how that works, it's insane. So you couldn't ride this year. So you're like, well, so do whatever with my spot. And I said, all right. So I got a week. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to fill a spot? Because like that, there's a commitment there. There's a time, there's effort, there's a lot going on.
It's expensive too to ride, by the way.
Yeah,
it's expensive because you've got to buy a couple $1,000s worth of shit to throw out for free.
Right.
Mardi Gras is free. The party all comes from the floats, goes out to the people, and that stuff, you've got to buy all that stuff. Each person spending a couple $1,000s.
But it's so worth it because and people goes, what's it like to ride Mardi Gras? There's people out there that don't know that you can actually do this. The guy, Matt, who I got to ride in your spot, he's like, you could do that. I'm like, dude, yeah, you can. You just got to make it happen. You got to put in some work. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. So what happens is when you ride on a float in Mardi Gras, okay, I can try and explain it to you. You've probably explained it to a million people over and over again. And however good of a job you do explaining riding in a parade on a float, throwing shit for 3 hours, you'll never do a good job. You just can't explain what it's like. And the way we've always talked about it is when David Bowie walks on stage, right? And people go ape shit, or, whatever, the Backstreet Boys or whatever massive rock star goes on stage. And while they're singing their songs for 2 hours, or think about the Beatles, it's just screaming at the top of your lungs from that audience coming at your face for 2.5 hours. None of us know what that's like, really. None of us are rock stars. When you jump on a float for Mardi Gras, the second you start and there's a crowd for 3 hours, that's all.
Everyone in that crowd is trying to get your attention to say, throw me something, give me some of the free shit that you have. And they're screaming at you. You're right. It's just like being at a concert.
But you're the star. There's just screaming at the top of their lungs. And all you see is the sea of humanity, right? Everywhere. And it's relentless. It never stops. Normally you drive by somebody, okay, hey, what's up? And you move on and it's over. But you go by this person. Well, there's another person. There's another person. And there's just this row down these streets for like 4 or 5 miles. And they're 10, 15, 20 people deep from the curb all the way back. And they're all screaming their minds out. And then you have this weird situation where you've got X number of things you can throw. You have this overwhelming feeling, or at least I do, of I feel like I have to throw something to everybody. I feel bad if somebody doesn't get something. So you're just humming, and you're never going to cover that space. You're just
but the float's moving the whole time too.
Right.
So as it's going, it's just, you could put your head down and you're digging around for something. You pick your head up and the person, is already, half a block away, because you're not going fast, but you're just digging around. And then people, because we're in the Tux parade, which if you ask anybody, a lot of people, I love that a lot of people tell me that Tux is their favorite parade. It's not the biggest. They don't have some of the big super floats like we talk about with Bacchus or Endymion, but it's just it's a wild kind of frat boy toilet humor party parade. It's during the day. And, one of the big things that, the parade is known for is not only toilet humor, but physical toilet trinkets, meaning plungers and little plastic toilets and toilet paper, and nobody throws out more toilet paper than us. But toilet paper is being thrown out, and then we've got these blowers that are attached to toilet paper and paint roller things, and we're blasting people the whole time. People tell me all the time that Tux is their favorite parade. It makes me so happy, and then I'm so proud to say, "Oh yeah, well, of course, that's the one that I ride in." That's the
I'm a
one
member.
We have a ship. We have a pirate ship in that one,
which is insane. And I've never told this story outside of just like you and a couple other people, but I was looking to get involved with Mardi Gras. I wanted to be in it, and I didn't know how to do it, and I just was like, well, why don't I just go to a website? And I always loved Tux, like the crew of Tux. That was always my favorite parade during the day. It's just an awesome vibe, like you said. So I'm like, well, you know what I could do? I can go to the damn website. Everyone's got a contact me page on their website, right? So I'm like, why don't I just send an email? Hi, I'm Jason. I would like to get me and some friends to dress up, and we want to walk in the parade. Because in between each float, there's either a marching band from a high school or a college, or there's these dancing troops, or there's always something in between every float. So I said, wouldn't it be cool to get a bunch of friends together, bring a bunch of beers, dress up in costume, and walk, and have a group of guys just walking in the parade? How badass. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to be on a float. I wanted nothing. I just want to get involved somehow. Send an email, and I get an email like a day later, and the guy goes, hey, can you stop by my office? I'd like to talk to you. And I go, okay. That's cool. I must be onto something here. Well, come to find out, the guy's name is Lloyd. He's the guy who started the crew of Tux Parade back in 68 or 69. Mm-hmm. This parade's been around since then. He started it because him and his buddies got drunk and went, you know what we should do? And they started. And you know what they used? They went out. They didn't have floats. So they went and found anybody with a trailer. So they were pulling trailers behind cars. They pulled somebody's dad had a boat, right? And you put a boat on a trailer. They drove that down the street and they decorated it, right? And they're throwing shit off this. It was a shitty parade back in the day. Don't get me wrong. Well, they're going down the parade route down St. Charles Avenue in the 60s, right? And they're all jumping up and down in this boat, and they end up jumping through the bottom of the boat because it's fiberglass.
Oh, damn.
So the boat got wrecked. So anyway, that's how it started. Now it's this massive parade. He goes, come on in and I want to talk to you. So we're sitting there and he's like, asking me questions. What do you want to do? What is this? What is that? And he starts explaining to me that story and all these things about the crew of Tux, how they do a lot of charity work and all this shit. He goes, well, have you ever seen the pirate ship in the crew of Tux parade? And I go, yeah, it's probably the coolest float in all of Mardi Gras because it looks like a real pirate ship. It's made of wood. Most of the floats are made of they got the fiberglass, or not the fiberglass, but whatever they used, the plaster. And they paint it up, okay? But the pirate ship is made out of real wood, and it's just fucking cool looking.
It looks different than every other float. It really does. It looks like it doesn't belong with all the other floats. I mean, it really does have its own appearance because it's not the other floats, like you said, they're just think about like that big cake at the end of Animal House,
It's kind of the same,
but this is, like you said, it's wood. It's a real ship that we're on. It's a real boat. It's a real pirate ship.
So he's like, well, do you want to ride on the pirate ship? I go, what do you mean ride on the pirate ship? He goes, I have this float. The guy who used to run it doesn't want to do it anymore. So it's kind of sitting there empty. He says, we'll put people on it, but I really want someone to kind of take ownership because each float you see in a Mardi Gras parade has a captain of that float. So every float that goes by, there's a dude who's the captain in charge of all the members on that one float. And then the captains of each float reports to Lloyd, the captain of the entire parade. And that's how you get it done. That's the hierarchy. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. I'll be the captain of that ship. Sure, I'm in. Now what? He goes, you got to go get people. You got to pay this money. You got to do this. And I went, oh, fuck, what did I just do? Well, we made it work. So long story short, every float person who's in charge is a captain. So technically, if you want to look at this, I am the captain of an actual ship. The ship is a pirate ship. I am legitimately a pirate captain.
Congratulations.
It's a long way to say that, but I technically am. So anyway, riding in a Mardi Gras parade is cool. And you know this, The first year we just kind of fucked around and we didn't know what we were doing. We just wanted to see what would happen. And it was great. Well, then we came up with the toilet paper leaf blower idea where we can shoot off an entire roll of toilet paper in about 1.3 seconds. It unrolls and it just goes for, 50 feet out into the crowd. So we get, I think, close to 800 or 900 rolls of toilet paper that all ends up in the trees up and down St. Charles Avenue. And that's the most fun I've ever had in my life doing that.
So I've been on the float every year. And like you said, I didn't ride this year because it was just London and I. So I didn't have a sitter. So I was waiting. So I'm waiting for the pirate ship to come by. And I saw you guys make the turn. And I could see, again, the pirate ship in Tux looks different than every other float because it's not really a float. It's an actual ship. But I saw you guys make the turn and there's just fucking toilet paper. It looks like it's trashed.
Yeah.
It does. It looks like it's trashed because there's just toilet paper. Because when you're trying to blow it on people, the wind's blowing it back around. And now there's just shit hanging off of our boat everywhere. It looks like we're having just the craziest house party ever. And then Jason puts together this soundtrack while we're playing. And it's the only float that's cranking metal. When it was coming by, it was playing Motorhead. Motorhead was playing when it was coming by us, and it's just a different vibe altogether. And you could just feel the energy of people seeing. Like I was on the street watching people reacting to the pirate ship, and people lose their mind for every float, no doubt about it. But the music and everything about the pirate ship, it was cool it was awesome to be on that side of it, to see people reacting to it. It was awesome.
Well, because when you're on it, it's like anything else. When you're in it, you don't know what it looks like. It's
just a nonstop vibe of just screaming insanity, but to see it brewing as the float is rolling up, it was cool. It was cool. To talk about, how do you describe Mardi Gras or riding on a float? 3 interviews that I remember over the years, and I knew that they had this in there, and I wasn't interviewing them about that, but I interviewed Henry Winkler for something, and he was the Fonz, and he went on to do, I think it was for the movie Holes. He kind of was coming back, and remember he was in Waterboy, and he kind of had a little resurgence for a while there. I remember asking Henry Winkler, because back when he was the Fonz, like he was like the biggest guy on TV. We were little kids. He was either the Bacchus King or the Endymion King, something. And he said it was the greatest experience of his life. So that was him. Believe it or not, I was kind of friends with Ed McMahon for a little while when I was in New Orleans. And he would come in all the time. And he was a Budweiser ambassador for a long time. And he knew that I worked with Bud. And I don't know, Ed was on a bunch of times. For some reason, I just kind of knew him. At one point, we had each other's phone numbers when he was alive. And I still use his intro for the show to this day. He was the king of Bacchus. He said it was one of the greatest days of his life. And then more recent was and again, I was interviewing these guys about other things. But the time that I think I interviewed Will Ferrell one time, and I just remember throwing it out there, dude, you got to tell me about and I was already here, I think. And I said, dude, you got to tell me, I know that you were the king of a parade in Mardi Gras. And man, like you could tell he was wrapping up the interview, but he went, let me tell you how great that was. And Will Ferrell, think about the shit that guy's been through. And he said that was one of the greatest experiences of his life.
And for me, doing the ride for 6 years, it's like, as you do anything, you kind of, the newness, the shininess wears off. This shit doesn't wear off, man. It's like, no. It takes me 2 days to come down from that high. And I didn't even drink, on the parade route. And I'm as high as you can imagine. I was just flying after I got off that shit, because it's 3 or 4 hours of just this incredible overstimulation, and everyone is screaming at you, and you're in this world of chaos, because I got the music blasting your face off, and then you got the toilet paper cans, and you're throwing beads, and you just got all this chaos going on around you, and it's like you're in the shit. Like on the pirate ship, most people like throw beads and they're having fun, they're goofing around. You're working. You get on that pirate ship, you're working. You know how it is, man. You walk off and you feel like you've been through the war.
Oh,
Like
your arm is tired because you're humming beads the whole time. I mean, your body, you are physically exhausted. And then the next day, you feel like you got your ass kicked and you've done nothing but just partied on a Mardi Gras float for 4 hours, but it's just nonstop. And, I just think it's the adrenaline and everything. You're just absolutely annihilated afterwards.
And it's such a great thing. And a couple of years ago, we started painting skulls. I found these ceramic skulls. They're head size. They're actual size skulls, just about. Or bigger, yeah. And so we get them, and then we spend some weeks ahead of Mardi Gras. And we paint them. Now we each get 6 skulls to hand paint. Now most of us suck at painting, so some are good, some aren't. So we started doing that about 4 or 5 years ago. And I always tell people, look, if you're going to be on the parade route, you can yell all you want. I'm not going to hear you because guess what? Everybody's yelling. Doesn't really work. I said, make a sign. So I've been encouraging friends, make a sign. And all you got to write on it is skull. And I will see that sucker. And I will do my best to get you this hand-painted skull, which is very fragile, right? So I go on the air.
Because you can't throw this. You can't throw. I dropped one and it's like, it's ceramic. So you have to like lean over and you have to physically give it to somebody. And normally if it's somebody that you see, maybe that it's, you happen to see somebody. And I think I saw Robert Reese's kid. I work with him here. And I saw that and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm looking around like that's a moment for me to give one of the skulls.
Right.
So like you said, if you see a sign or something like that, you lean over and you have to hand that to somebody. But as soon as you pick one up and you're just cruising by all the people, the place, you like when you didn't think they had like another level to go, they see something that they want and you just feel like they go to 11 and 12 and they go to 13. You didn't think that, they could get above 10.
Yeah, there's gears that hit because like when the ship shows up, everyone, yeah, awesome, cool. And then like I'll hit the toilet paper cannon. So the toilet paper starts blasting off. People, whoa, there's another gear. Then my brother built this confetti cannon, so he'll blast off confetti, then it hits another gear, you hold up a skull and it just becomes this roar. It's wild, man. Like you don't think the crowd has another gear. So I've told people for years, make signs, skull. So I was on the air here in New Orleans on the radio show and I'm saying, hey, look, make a sign that says Ginty on it and I'll try and throw you some shit. And I was saying that for the week leading up to the parade. So that way, if I see my name, boom, I'll throw you some shit. Well, then I'm also out there promoting, Pirates of the Quarter, because that's the name of the group that rides on the ship. Pirates of the Quarter. It's not only a great tour in New Orleans, it's also our group that rides on the pirate ship. It's the same name. So I always say, make a Pirates of the Quarter sign or whatever, and then that's that. So no shit, man. I saw my name on signs. So I'm like, fuck, no way. That's so cool. Someone took the time to write my stupid name on a fucking piece of cardboard. You absolutely are getting a skull, sir. You know what I mean? Like I was so excited. And then I saw a dude with a Pirates of the Quarter sign he made with a big skull on it. And I was like, holy shit, that's really fucking awesome, dude. You are definitely getting the sign. Then I'm cruising along, and like again, you've got such chaos. You're firing on 120% adrenaline and just chaos, right? And I'm going along, and I'm throwing shit, and I'm doing this, and I got the toilet paper flying, and I look up, and I swear to Christ, dude, there's a big sign that says "Playpants Pod."
I had heard through the great
shit.
That, and I had no idea where they were going to be. I had no idea if they were going to do it, but London's godmother told me that a friend of hers listens to the podcast. She lives in New Orleans, and there was a rumor that she might be making a sign. Now, if we've explained everything to you correctly about being on a float, the chaos and everything, you could miss your mother and a 50-person family reunion. You could go past them and not notice them. Okay. So I didn't know if she was going to. I heard a rumor that there might be something for Playpants on the parade route. The fact that you saw it is amazing. And then we got a picture of it and it was awesome. I was so glad that you hooked her up with a skull.
Dude, I was blown away. I saw it. I'm like, holy shit, you get a skull. Yeah, Francesca's her name, and she's a big supporter of the Playpants Pod. She'll chime in on Twitter and stuff. So, Francesca, you are awesome. Because I actually, after I had out the skull, I stepped back for a second and I sat there and you know how you like take a knee? You know what I mean? You're like, whew, let me take a minute here. Let me just sit back and lean back on something for a second. Dude, I sat back and I was like, it's the weirdest fucking day of my life, man.
Yeah, the playpan sign. That's huge.
I was
That's
blown
pretty
away.
huge.
So something that you and I do kind of like, hey, we do this. And that's that, you know? So to see that, it all adds up. And it's all these elements that adds up. And it just keeps, your mind is just being blown again and again and again. So Francesca, thank you so much for the sign. I hope you enjoy the skull. I hope you didn't get one of mine because I can't paint for shit. They're fucking terrible. I was so embarrassed. Like as I was packing them up, I'm like, God, I hope nobody gets these because these are bad. I just can't fucking paint. I can't. I got a great idea in my head and they just suck every time I do them. Every year, my realize it's just shit. I should just smash them on the ground.
I'll be back next year on the ship, painting the skulls. I'll be back and ready to go for sure.
Yeah. We'll rock the shit out of it, dude. So yeah, great Mardi Gras this year. I'm so glad that we get to hang out on Sunday. And you know what I was going to say before we go to do our break is that here we are hanging out, me and you, 7-8 hours maybe on the avenue, playing with your kid, hula hoop and all that shit, right? You think we took one fucking picture together that we could have used for like this Playpants podcast? And we're both in the business of, let's make sure we get a picture of this. Let's make sure we get a picture. You think either one of us went, hey, let's get a couple pictures.
There is not a picture of just you and I. No, there isn't. No.
Why would there be? It would have been great. It would have been so smart.
Pictures of you.
I know it's not that much to look at. I got to be honest.
All right. We are going to take a quick break with our one sponsor, but I gave Jason a homework assignment today. As we record on Wednesday, March 2nd, today is the actual birthday of the CD. I guess it wasn't invented today, but I count the birthday as when it was made available here in the US. So 39 years ago today, 1983, I'll do the math, don't hurt yourself. CD players and CDs were released for the first time in the United States of America. A CD, kids, is a compact disc, okay? It is a digital physical form that we all lost our minds over, because before that, we had things that weren't as indestructible. We had things that didn't sound as good, but we had portable things. We had portability, which was the game changer was the cassette. Right. Maybe the 8-track, but the cassette really was the game changer for the portability. But the CD player coming out and then the CD Walkman and all that stuff, I want to get into all of that. But so with today being the birthday of the CD, it was a no-brainer. It was very easy for me. I remember the first CD that I bought. It's weird, but I remember the first CD that I bought. And then I thought, well, I remember my first 45. Well, wait a minute. I remember my first album. Okay, wait a minute. We got 45s. We got albums. We've got cassettes. We've got CDs. And then we like to do top fives on this show, digital downloads. So I remember my first digital purchase. Now, you and I were crushing Napster, okay? I'll be the first person to tell you. Oh, Napster and LimeWire, we were ripping tunes every day. Yep. back in the day. So I'm talking about the money that you spent on not physically owning the piece of music that you bought. And that's a weird one. Because I like to order I like having the physical copy. I don't know when I'm going to break that mold. I imagine eventually I'm going to have to, but I remember I owned something and I didn't feel like I really owned it. But I remember my first digital purchase. So we can get into that as our top 5. Okay.
Absolutely. I think it's great. Going through this, I was like, what the hell did I buy? Like it's taken me a minute to figure this out.
So we'll get into all this. And it's funny because you get into like, well, how old you are. And a lot of this stuff overlaps all at the same time for me, like, okay, because it's getting into music and then you're just grabbing the things that are available at that time. So I'm excited to talk about this. I think it's going to be a really interesting top 5. First, let me talk about our sponsor. We've already mentioned them 100 times today, but yeah, piratesofthequarter.com is the website. At Pirates of the Quarter. Go to New Orleans, number one. New Orleans is awesome. Obviously, you listen to this show, you can tell that there's 2 people here, one that still lives there, one that did live there and still has property there. It's amazing. And when you go to New Orleans, you're going to want to party balls. There's different energies. There's different ways to do your time in New Orleans, but you're going to want to go to the French Quarter. And one of the really, really cool things you could do is walk around the French Quarter on a tour with pirates and have them tell you real pirate stories. These are not bullshit made up pirate stories. These are real tales of things that happen in the French Quarter. There's just history everywhere you look. You know, it's like that when you go to Europe. And that's what's so cool about the French Quarter, because it's so old and it's preserved. And there's so much history that went down there. It's over 300 years old now. So there's no other tour like it in the French Quarter. Grab a drink. You can walk the streets of the quarter. You're hearing these incredible stories of real pirates and their involvement in the history and the evolution of New Orleans. So there's so much more to New Orleans than just Bourbon Street, like we say. But even just when you get 1 and 2 streets off of Bourbon Street, there's just the history and things that happen there. There's going to be no quiz at the end of this thing. You're just going to end up being so interested. You're going to learn stuff. You're still partying. You're drinking. You're walking around. You're going to discover, and you're going to walk away telling your friends, God, guess what I learned? So pirate history, real pirate history of New Orleans and the French Quarter. Details at piratesofthequarter.com.
You know,
Jason Ginty.
I just wanted to say real quick, Rod, I walked around the quarter tonight, and it's the day after Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras. I mean, all sorts of horrible things happened down in Bourbon Street last night, and you wouldn't know it. That's how great New Orleans is at cleaning up after a party. They clean that shit. You would have never known, other than, you know, some glitter in the cracks and maybe a couple little weird things here and there, little chunks of beads. But overall, you would have not really known that Mardi Gras happened yesterday. You know, it was so cleaned up. Yeah, it was wild to walk around like, hey, it still smelled like booze and bad decisions, but it wasn't looking destroyed. So, Rod, I was going through all my shit when you sent this over about First 45, first digital download, which you're gonna be like, what the fuck? And then first album and stuff. You're gonna just be like, dude, you buy the worst shit. I bought the worst shit. I looking back and I'm like, oh my God, I actually spent money on that. Oh my God, what was I thinking?
Well, but you're just, you know, you're that awkward weirdo kid. You don't know what you like yet. You know, you're drawn to music, which is good. You know, it's, you know, looking back on it, you can kind of laugh at some stuff. I'm not exactly, you know, proud of my first 45, but, you know, it's all right. It's not, there's more embarrassing things that I could have purchased. To me, it's the years that are interesting, because I looked at when stuff came out, when I got it. And, you know, it's weird, man. When 8 years old is when it hit. 8 years old is like when a fucking lightning bolt came down and just hit me. 1977, bam, I get fucking hit over the head. And now, boom, little Rodney Ryan wants music. He wants his own music. It was, for me, it was 8 years old, was like the most, it was my introduction into getting into this. Now, everyone's going to be a little different because you're the oldest. And I know that, you know, when you're 8, whatever your parents listened to, even if it was the Eagles, if it was fucking Led Zeppelin, okay, depending on how old your parents are, it didn't matter. It was your parents' music. It wasn't cool, you know? Right. We've had this discussion on this show before. But when you have an older sibling, that's what really helped out. And my sister was absolutely everything. You had to be the trailblazer in your house. Now, I don't know if you had some real close older cousins or anything like that that were influencing you, or you had some what we called big kids, because I did get influence from some of the older kids in my neighborhood as well. But my sister really was the most important person for me getting into music, because we were kind of getting into it. As she's getting into it, she's 3 years older than me. but we're still doing it at the same time. So that's how I started a little bit earlier than her.
Yeah. See, it was my mom. My mom had great music. Now, again, like you just said, it was her music. I didn't like any of it. She had Beatles,
No.
she had Elvis, she had Eagles, she had Rod Stewart, she had the Bee Gees, she had all the classics, man. She had all the shit. Very, very well rounded too. It wasn't always like the same shit. She had a lot of cool shit, man. And it's like now it's like, oh my God. She's like, now when I say, or I'll put stuff on when she's visiting, she's like, you dumbass. Now you love that shit. I tried to tell you back then. I'm like, I know,
Absolutely.
but you know, it was your music. It ain't cool to like your parents' music and shit. So she was really the main influence in the early stages, but I never, it was always her music. It was her big, gigantic stereo system with the record player. And I didn't really see it, how the whole thing worked for a lot of years. And then it was just on the radio. For when I was young, I didn't know you could own things that played music. And when I was a kid, I was just like, it's just there. It's just out in the world. It's just in the air. So you just have to capture it off the radio. I thought that's how music was done. I didn't know there was actual physical things you could buy. Now
that's what's so interesting about this list that we're about to do, because we're going to talk about physical copies. You're right. Everybody, and that's, again, I say it all the time. Radio is magic, especially if you came up with it growing up. All of us, before we had any physical copies of anything, the radio was always there. It was always there, I get it. Kids got YouTube and all these places to download music and listen to things, and that's going to be what's important to them. But for us, it was radio. And before it's not that I wasn't into music, but before I started getting physical copies, the reason why I wanted physical copies of things is because I heard them on the radio. And the radio was, most of us, anyone that's our generation, that was going to be our first exposure. I mean, I get it. You talk to people that are older than us, and they'll tell you that how many times have you heard somebody say, when they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, it changed their life. Yep. So that was the first time that television had influenced something musical in kids. For me, it was seeing Kiss on TV. It was the same thing. And I think Tom Morello talks about this as well, as seeing Kiss on TV. It's that Paul Lynde special. It's the Paul Lynde special on Halloween, and seeing them on there, I lost my ever loving mind. And I had already listened to the radio, but Kiss, much like the Beatles did a generation earlier, got more kids to pick up drumsticks and pick up guitars than any other influence at the time. But MTV, again, would be another huge influence to people that are our age, I mean, MTV coming into the 80s. But for me, it really does all go back to the radio.
Yeah, and I listened to the radio. I had older cousins who were very into the radio. And we've talked about this before, is that growing up in Buffalo, New York, you had all the Buffalo stations, but then we got stations out of Toronto and St. Catharines. And so, you could put your presets on, like, say in a car, you had 7 or 8 presets. Every one of them could be a form of a rock station.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to have anything else because we had so much music coming at you. We almost doubled down. It was great. And the Canadians were wild. They'd be playing all the Canadian content, all the Canadian bands. So we grew up with all this great exposure to bands like Triumph and Rush and all that stuff. But my cousins anytime I'd go visit them, they had guys that they hung out with, and those dudes just rocked faces all the time. Radios were never not on with them. They brought their boom boxes around. We'd be chilling on the corner, and they'd have a boom box with them, and we'd be singing along, and they'd be playing the music. And I'm like, fuck, this is so freaking cool. That was my early music education. Well, then I got a radio because after hanging out with those dudes with the boom box, I'm like, I got to get one of those. Asked for one for my birthday. I got it. And then I just started listening to the radio constantly. It was always on. And then, you start becoming a super nerd. And, and I've told this story. You start listening to all the countdowns. And then you record the songs that you loved on cassette, so you could rewind and play again, play again. So you could burn through your favorite song a million times. So that's where it all came from. For me, it was older influences, older cousins, older friends on the street. And even back then, I kind of liked a little bit of everything. It was all rock leaning, all guitar stuff. I didn't start buying shit till much later though, dude. This is a weird thing, man. This can be wild. So I want to hear
All right.
Why don't we do it? We'll start. You do the 45. I'll do the 45 album. Because we'll go.
You're gonna go back and forth. Okay.
I think so because
everything about this top 5 is going to be different than we've ever done before.
That's okay. Our podcast. Fuck it. If they don't like it, it's all right.
Okay, so 45, I think that's where I wanted to start things off. And I didn't bring it out, but I've brought it out in previous podcasts. I still have it. My first 45, and it's 1977. It was a new song. It was on the radio. It was Styx, Come Sail Away. Yeah. And I still have it. And here's the nerdiness of it. I have the picture sleeve, meaning it was a 45. Most of them just came in a generic brown sleeve. This one Styx put out, and it was just like a mini album cover of a clipper ship and a UFO, and I still have the 45. I should have bought. I don't know why I didn't bring it out, but I should have brought it out. I could have produced copies of everything I'm about to talk about here that I still own. But Styx, Come Sail Away. It could have been worse. It's not my favorite song today, but it Styx, Come Sail Away. It's a pretty great song.
It's not bad. I'll tell you mine. I never had one. I never bought a 45, dude. Why would I buy a 45? It's one fucking song. I must have missed the boat because I was younger. I was 3 years younger than you,
because they were 99 cents. And so I'm 8 years old and I can scrape together a buck. It was the first 45 because my mom had tons of Elvis 45s. There were 45s and there were albums. My mom had a lot of music. And that was something that I could afford.
Right.
So I said that I like this song. So I went and I bought it.
Yeah. See, I missed the boat, man. I just never, my mom had stacks of 45s everywhere. I mean, she had a shit ton of them. And I just, things were winding down by the time I started buying music. And I was older when I started buying music. So the 45 never happened. It never happened. I never really messed with them until way years later. I think I own the only reason I own a 45 now is I think it was a record company promotion or some shit. I think I got like a fucking Mumford and Sons 45 somewhere. I never owned any 45. I didn't need to. I just missed that window. I never owned a 45.
It was so cool owning that song. It reminds me of how the first time I heard a parent tell me that, Rod, you don't understand about YouTube. You don't understand. My daughter plays Justin Bieber Baby, plays it to the end, then starts it from the beginning and plays it again. And boom, boom, boom. And that's how it got 1 billion. And that's how it got 2 billion. It was just kids just listening to it over and over again. That was the 45.
Yeah.
That was the 45. I owned that song and I just listened to it over and over and over again. And then I forgot what was on the other side. I should know because I probably played that 500,000 times because I played, Come Sail Away 1 million times. And then every now and then you flipped it over and you played whatever, B-side, whatever the B-side was. I remember it not being great. But that was the beauty. But that was the beauty of the 45. It was just this. You loved that song so much. And now you had power. You owned it. You didn't have to wait for it to come on the radio. You could hear that song anytime you wanted. The power of that was unbelievable.
It's your song now. It's yours. By the way, the B-side.
It's your song. It's your song that you own it. Because you'd wait for a song on the radio and you would lose your fucking mind when your song came on the radio. Something that you liked. And you would call radio stations up and they probably didn't really take real requests back then either. But you would request all kinds of music and you would wait for the song to play. And when it did play, you lost your mind. But then you had to sit around and wait for it again. It's like when people started buying those Christmas specials on VHS. You could watch fucking Frosty and Rudolph anytime you wanted. Not like you had to wait for it to air on the network. But owning that piece of music was power, man. It's like, hey, you know what? I feel like listening to Come Styx, Come Sail Away. Put it on right now.
And then every once in a while, I'll put on the other side, which was a song called Put Me On.
Put Me On. Yes, thank you.
Put Me On. Yeah, that was the B-side.
Not a great song.
No, But the thing is that, people say you don't understand YouTube. Yeah, I totally do. I just didn't count how many times I dragged the needle across and played it again, or how many times I used to rewind the tape and play that song again.
There was no digital counter for that. It just your record sounding shittier and shittier from playing it over and over again, and your needle just wearing down the grooves on the record.
But it did. It gave you power, man. It's like, okay, this is mine now. I own this shit, and I can play whatever I want. And you burn the fuck out of it too, man. You'd probably had 1 million plays on that fucking song, man. Yeah, I never owned a 45.
Okay. Album, over to you. First album.
See, this is where I'm going to throw it out there, and I didn't buy my first album. It was a gift. So I that being said, I will give you my first one I bought.
My first album is a gift.
Okay, so then we'll go with that. It was the 1984 album from Van Halen. My mom,
first album, first physical, the vinyl.
Yeah, she bought. She was in that the CD or the record club of the month. Remember, you paid like a penny. You got like 900 albums.
Columbia House. So she'd fill out all the time, and she'd just get once a month. There'd be a bunch of records coming in. I'm like, that's cool. So one day she comes in, and I had had a record player for a little while, but I didn't have no records, or I played hers once in a while. She comes in, she's got a stack of I think it was 3 records. She goes, "Hey, I got you some records." I'm like, wow, cool. And I'm thinking, oh, fucking Eagles. I'm thinking all of her shit. I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. And she comes in and she goes, and she did a good job. I will say she did a great job. I remember I don't remember what the third album was. The first one, she shows it and it's white, and then had 3 bars across it with some artwork on it. It was Synchronicity from Police. Okay.
I'm like, whoa, cool. Wow, this is good. Okay, good job, Mom. And then she goes, and then I have this other thing. There's a big baby on the front, and it looks like it's got a cigarette hanging out of its mouth. And she goes, "There's some guy named Van Halen, and maybe you'll like this." And I went, "Oh, no way," So I got the 1984 album. So those were both new at that time, or no?
Yes.
Yeah. So Synchronicity came out, I believe, around that same time period. And I don't remember what the third one was, because it must have sucked because I don't remember it. So I got those, and I wore those 2 albums out, man. I became obviously a huge Van Halen fan, but then I also became a Police fan because that Synchronicity album's got some great songs on it. It's fucking great, So I wore those things out. So those were my first 2 albums I owned.
Do you remember? Because it came out in the beginning of the year, 1984. It came out right January.
Yeah, it was right out of the gate. Yeah.
Right. So do you remember how long? I mean, did you know, was your mom buying you that album your introduction to Van Halen?
No, I had heard Van Halen.
You already heard the songs. Okay.
Yeah, I probably heard Jump, because it was everywhere.
Yeah, Jump had to be all over the place at that time.
But yeah, my introduction to Van Halen was not like your normal intro to Van Halen. My intro was the 1984 album. And then I went back and started digging around and went, whoa, shit, the older stuff. Wow, what's this keyboard stuff is cool, but wow, that's why I never minded the keyboards with Van Halen, because that's where I started.
That was your hop on.
That was my hop on the bus. I'm like, this is fucking unbelievable. These sounds are crazy. And then it wasn't until years later I realized, oh, those are keyboards. Holy shit, that's amazing. And then I went back to the early stuff, because then I got older, and the older dudes were like, no, you got to check this shit out. I'm like, oh, then the bombs went off of my skull, and I'm like, holy shit.
Right.
Yeah. That's why Van Halen's such a weird band for me. I came in in the middle, it was already going.
So 84, how old are you?
84. I was 13 ish.
Okay.
Somewhere in that wheelhouse. Yeah.
All of my stuff most of my stuff here that I'm going to talk about, I'm 8. I'm 8 years old, but because I had an older sister. So think about it. Sue's 11, and she's probably getting into this stuff at the same time, maybe a year before me. But that's what probably escalated my getting into stuff earlier, because if you have an older sibling, they're super influential, when you're a kid.
Totally. And it wasn't like, I couldn't go, hey, Mom, I'm going to go out and buy some music. It just never came out of my head. I never thought of it. I don't think I ever really asked for it back then. She just surprised me out of the blue one day. Comes in my room, and I'm like putting all the weird shit away. And she's like, hey, check this out. I got these albums for you. So it was different. It was a different way I approached the whole music thing. How was your first album? I can't wait to hear this.
Well, so when I talk about Kiss, Paul Lynde, this Halloween special, which is now, you can get it, you can see it on Netflix, dude. It's on Netflix, the Paul Lynde Halloween special. He must have done it for a couple of years. That was 1976. And that's when I saw Kiss. So that's when I saw them. That's my taste. What is this? My first album, I don't get an album until my birthday in August of 77. So I'm now almost a year into knowing about Kiss. Love Gun comes out in June of 77, and I get it at the end of August for my birthday. Wow. So, yeah, August, I can tell you, August 26th, 1977, I get the Love Gun album for my birthday. And it was bought for me, but I wanted it, you know, like I didn't know what I wanted. I guess my mom just went out and bought the newest one. She probably went to, you know, Sam the record man and said, give me the new Kiss album if there is one. And that's what, you know, he's like, here, this one's been out for 2 months. This has got all their hot hits on it right now. All the hottest hits on the radio. This is the one. Yeah, my first album is Kiss.
Isn't that weird?
My second album comes later that year because October, they release Alive 2. And I get that for Christmas. So birthday and Christmas. I mean, you know, I didn't have your setup. I begged for Columbia House and all of that stuff. I just wasn't getting things that weren't attached to holidays or birthdays. That's when you got stuff in my house. So yeah, my first 2 albums were Kiss albums.
But see, I think I got them only because you had to have so many things checked on your box to get your full order for your penny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think my mom's like, well, let me see if Jason wants these 2 things here. And that's how I walked into it, man. And it's weird because you were already a Kiss fan and then it just blew up from there because you got the albums. I wasn't a Van Halen fan. I didn't know. I wasn't a fan of really anything, I think, at that point. I think I liked a lot of stuff. I didn't have like one thing. And I don't know if that album even put me into the Van Halen super fan category yet either. I don't think it did. Because then when other stuff came out, I was like, oh, okay. Well, think about it. 84, there was a huge break. You know, Dave's out. Sam's in, right? So I think it wasn't. So 84, that comes out. It blows up.
They toured 84. They toured it. They toured because Sue, my sister, saw that tour. And I was told again by my mom I was too young, and my sister definitely didn't want her dumb little brother tagging along. Mm-hmm. So she wasn't offering for me to go with her group. I mean, it just wasn't even an option. And I wanted to go so bad to go see Van Halen because Sue had that album. Sue had all that stuff first, my sister. So she went to the 84 tour. That was one of her earlier concerts. So she has that on me that. And if our friend Pierre is listening, Pete Huth, he hangs it over my head all the time too, because he saw the Diver Down tour, and he's our age. Yeah, he went just when he was really young. But I never saw Roth and Michael Anthony. I never saw the original lineup.
No, never did either. See, thinking about it now, and it's so weird. I'm finally figuring this out after all these years. Is that, you know, when Sammy got in the band and then like, what was it? Fucking 5150 came out and I heard that first single, Why Can't This Be Love on the radio? I was like, who is this? This is unbelievable. What a great song. And I just fell in love with it immediately. And they're like, this is fucking Van Halen. And they got a new singer. His name is Sammy Hagar. I'm like, who the fuck is Sammy Hagar? And all this shit. And I was like, this is awesome. So I went out and bought that album right away. I got into Van Halen mostly through Sammy Hagar. And then all my friends were giving me shit.
I resisted Sammy. I was already in Diamond Dave.
Right.
I was totally on board. Everything that my exposure to Van Halen was all Diamond Dave. And
right.
It's taken forever. I mean, I've only appreciated Sammy for maybe the last 20 years, maybe. And that's a shame, you know?
It took me getting into him. And then I'm in real time. So the new shit comes out. I'm a fan. So I'm digging it the whole ride through Sammy's years. But then after, a couple of years, everyone's like, you fucking dumbass, go listen to the Roth shit. So I spent a lot of time listening to that. And then I was like, holy fuck, this is great. It was like discovering a whole new band because it sounded different, And it's like, holy shit, this is amazing. I've got this stuff that's new with Sam, and all this old shit with Roth is unbelievable as well. So I've always liked both. Again, I talked about Jazz Fest and Mardi Gras. It's two different things. I never cared about the fight. I thought it was stupid. I'm like, who gives a shit? It's all great music.
I was very unaccepting for longer than I needed to be, just to be stubborn. I was always, no Van Hagar. I was a Van Halen guy, and I was wrong. And I was wrong because the Sammy stuff is phenomenal, and Sammy's phenomenal. He's just one of the greatest singers of all time.
His voice still is unbelievable. So first albums, there you go. And then I didn't buy my first album because I never had a record player. I at that point, my mom kind of bought me a couple more, and I never really pursued it. And then we moved over to cassettes, and that's where I started buying my own shit. So I never bought another album until about 6 years ago, when vinyl started coming back. And it started being cool. I missed the vinyl's cool thing. I came in late. And I asked for my wife's like, what do you want for Father's Day? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know, a record player. So she got me a record player. I'm like, oh, ooh, cool. Well, then I had no albums to play. I had nothing. So I went down to everyone said, oh, go find your albums at the thrift shop, dude. Go to the Goodwill. I'm like, really? Cool. So I did. I went in there, and some dude, it must have just died, who had a great collection. So I picked up all this great shit. I picked up like 20 albums. They were fucking phenomenal albums, man. All this cool shit all over the road. So those are my
like
first
the
albums.
vinyl. I like the vinyl resurgence because, you pick up some, Ted Nugent album or something, and you just listen to it, and you put it on, you listen to the whole thing, and it kind of turns you on to some, it's hit and miss. If you only spend, $5 on the album, if you don't like it, you don't like it, but it's worth it to buy it. So you just kind of look for names that maybe you recognize, and you just give it a spin, and it's fun. It's fun because you're discovering. The thing about albums is you're listening to more than the singles, which is always, the thing that the most romantic thing about an album is you put it on and you listen to the whole side. So you're listening to the clunkers and the bombers and the singles and the hits and the ballads, all mixed in. You're listening to a whole side. Nobody's taking the time to fucking put on an album and then clean it and then dust off the needle. Nobody's taking the time to play one song, where I see you didn't get into the 45s. But when you put out an album, you're playing the whole side of the album. So you're going to listen to 4 or 5 songs.
And what's great about it is, for me, being a music fan and having listened to so much shit over the years, is the albums helped me to discover and rediscover a lot of artists. Like, you always talked about Tommy Bolin and stuff. And I was like, cool, and I listened to a couple songs, like, okay, it's cool. The great thing about it is, you put an album on, you listen to it all the way through, and you're like, oh, okay, that was pretty cool. And then you flip it over, you listen to it. Oh, okay, that was pretty cool. And then a week later, you put it back on, or it's still in the player if you're lazy ass like me. So then you hit it again, and you're like, hey, wait a minute, what was that song? And then you're looking at the album. So I've become fans of all these different artists that I never really gave a shit about before, because it's so easy to skip. And you know how you got that itchy trigger? You listen to 20 seconds of a song, I fucking don't like it.
Yep.
We don't give anything enough time now to let it develop.
You don't do that with an album. Once you set it and forget it. It's like that Ronco oven. You put the needle down, and then that's it. You're on a ride now for whatever is on that side. But I mean, that makes me so happy. Your discovery of Tommy Bolin, that teaser album is just amazing. It's an amazing album. And that was like my cool uncle that turned me onto that,
But that's what's great about the album side, or the albums, the records, is because you're not skipping shit, and it forces you to listen. It's so easy to skip through stuff, and you might miss a lot of things. Plus, back then, and here comes the old man in me. Music was a little different back then. You couldn't just make a single. You actually had to make an album with a couple of good songs on it. You weren't just going to one fucking song to get on iTunes.
And the songs were laid out on the album in a certain way. You had to go in this way, and then you went on this musical journey, and then they pulled you back, and then they came out with a fucking flamethrower, and then they went a mid-tempo one after that, and none of that was on accident. They laid out those tracks they spent hours and hours thinking about what order they wanted these things in, you know?
And don't forget it, you know, it's an art project too, because the album covers were always fucking cool, man. You know, there was just more to it than just listen to a 3-minute song going, that was cool. You know, there was a lot more depth.
You didn't ask, but I'll tell you anyways. 1990, Jane's Addiction, Ritual de lo Habitual is the last album I bought current music, not retro buying stuff afterwards. 1990 CDs, that's when I really, boom, make the split. 1990, I bought, that was the last album that I bought. It was available on CD, and I hadn't made that switch over yet. When a lot of people already had CDs, I was late. I was hanging on to albums like most things I hang on to forever. And I'm like, okay, normally I'm not the first to the party on anything. So that was the last new music that I bought on album.
Yeah, see, I never got into album because albums were already, by the time 84 hits, what was the anniversary of the CD? 86, you said?
Yeah. No, 30. No. Well, no, it's 83 is when albums and CD players were made available. That's when your crazy audiophiles, you know, people went out and they bought, you know, there were albums, cassettes, and then there was one little cap. There was only maybe 10 things available on CD, and I think one of them was Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA. You know, there was only, if you went to the record store, I remember when CDs came out, there was 5 of them. There was 5 different albums. So like, what is that thing? Like, it's a CD. I don't know. It's some new thing. Okay. I'm never going to own those.
So I got caught in the middle there. So like, I didn't buy a lot of records, or I didn't get a lot of records because it was over. It was kind of like, okay, well, the CDs are the new, or no, cassettes. Cassettes came first, and cassettes,
and that's next on our list.
Cassettes was the world. That's the world I lived in. That's where that's when I started buying a shit ton of stuff, because cassettes weren't, you know, $9.99 or whatever it was. You go get an album, you know, so you could get cassettes, and I had a couple of different cassette players. So yeah, that's where my world really started. It's unfortunate because cassettes blow.
1982, I get my first boombox. And I use my Christmas tips from my paper route. My sister got $110 and I got like $108. We split the paper route. So Sue's got one side of the street, I have the other side of the street, and we're delivering papers. So people give you money at Christmas time. They get, you know, you're the paper boy all year. They give you a little extra, you know, they give you $5. You know, like that $5 was huge. You know, if somebody gave you $5, I don't think anybody gave 10 or anything like that.
No.
So we each made $100. And I can't remember the store, but they had a Sony boombox. And so the year's 1982. So I'm 13 years old, and I couldn't believe it. My mom let me spend that money. That was the most money I'd ever spent before. It's the most money I ever had in my possession. It was the biggest windfall of my life at that time. Okay. So I got $106, $107. Sue and I buy the exact same boombox, a Sony boombox, for $99.99. And it's the silver boombox with the 2 speakers, the cassette, the radio across the top, the big dial, you know, nothing's digital. You know, it's an analog dial on it. It's got an antenna and got the handle. You can put it on your shoulder. So I get a boombox with a cassette player on it. I got to start getting cassettes, right? I don't get a cassette. So I get it. It's my Christmas tips, 1982. So I don't make the purchase until 83. I don't get a cassette until September of that year.
Holy shit.
What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm not using that feature on my boombox.
No, you are.
I'm obsessed with the radio.
Yeah,
you know,
you're recording songs.
We're recording stuff. Yeah, we're recording stuff and all of that. My first cassette comes in September. And to be honest with you, it probably was a couple of months afterwards. The album came out in September of 83. Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil.
Yeah.
And Ozzy, Bark at the Moon. I went double purchase for my first cassette.
Those are good.
I went double down, boom, and I blew $20 of my paper route money because you said I think they were $9.99 for a cassette for an album.
That was the deal. Yeah. Wow, that's two good ones.
So I bought two right out of the gate in late 1983. Bark at the Moon and Shout at the Devil, because they were touring together. So those two bands, and then the band Wasted opened up when they came to Buffalo, and Wasted was Pete Way, bass player, UFO, still trying to get you into UFO.
Yeah, I gotta work that out.
But yeah, they were going out on tour together. And I remember wanting to go to that tour and being shut out again by my mom. Some of the big kids that I hung out with, they went to that show. And my mom was like, no way in hell. And am I letting you go? You know, I'm 14. She's like, no, you're no. 14 years old. You're not going with a bunch of hoodlums. You're not going to downtown Buffalo. You know, where you lived, where I lived.
No.
Buffalo? You know, it's
the city.
It's 20 minutes away. It's like, you're going to Buffalo.
Nobody goes to the city from here. You can't go there. What are you thinking, man?
All right. So I come at you with a double first cassette ownership. I couldn't just have one. I went two. Jason Ginty, first cassette.
I've talked about this on the podcast before. The first cassette I owned was Mental Health from Quiet Riot, 84.
Ooh, good one.
I didn't buy it until later though, because Come On Feel the Noise was such a huge hit, and then Slick Black Cadillac, and I think my cousin had a copy of the album, so I ended up about a year later going out and buying that and Theater of Pain, Motley Crue.
Ooh, lost my virginity to that album.
Why did I fucking
talking about a previous podcast?
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that. I should have never. Nah, that was stupid. Anyway, those were my first two. And yeah, I got the boom box and I was like, this is so freaking cool, and wore those out. When you only got two, and you know how like those albums, some of them got some clunkers on them. So you're like, oof, God, I don't want to hear that song. So you were always rewinding the tape, play, rewind the tape, play. So you're wearing that fucking tape.
But that had to be out for a while, because then again, that's 83.
Theater came out in 85.
No, Quiet Riot.
Yeah, that came out in 83. So it was.
So it had to be. So it was around.
It was a while. It had been out around a while. It took a while to get that going. So yeah, I was late, but I loved the songs on that album. So I was like, I got to get that first. And then it was just, you know, my room was filling up with cassettes after that. Anytime I get any money, it was go to the store, buy cassettes. I get birthday money, go buy some cassettes. Christmas, I just want money for cassettes. Then I'd start, what do you want for your birthday? I'd just write down a list of cassettes I wanted. Aunts and uncles would be buying them. And that was how I financed my my music collection, you know?
And I remember stacking them up and being so proud, you know, like, man, look, these are my cassettes, you know, and the Quiet Riot was early, and Stay Hungry, Twisted Sister, you know, we're not going to take it. You know? That's a great album though, man. Like Stay Hungry is a fucking ripper. But I remember just stacking my cassettes up and just looking at that. I owned these. I used to stack them up this way, and then I would line them up like books. You know, I mean, I had maybe 7 or 8 of them, and I just remember being so proud. Like this is my music. Like because I had a paper route, so I was able to buy stuff then, because we were not just given stuff arbitrarily. You know, it had to be a special holiday or something. So to be able to go out and buy that stuff. And of course, I don't know what my mom expected me to spend I don't know if she wanted me to save that for college or what. I got yelled at for every purchase I made. Like, what the hell? You bought that? I'm like, what do you think? I'm out there up to my asshole in snow, Mom. What, don't you think I want to buy a few things? What do you think I buy? What do you think I'm going to do with this paper route money?
Yeah, no, I'd babysit the kids next door and I'd get money. And I'm like, the first thing I would do is like, you think I want to sit around watching their cable, hanging out with these little kids? Hell no, I want to go and do other cool shit. But then I had the money. I was like, oh, so this is how this works. I do a little bit of work. I get paid. Fuck yeah. And I'd run, next time I was at the mall, I'd be in the record store and I'd be buying more shit. But you know what always sucked is you'd be in the record store. And then of course your buddies would be there and you just end up talking music forever while you're in there. And then you're like, what are you getting? Oh, I'm going to get this. What are you getting? I'm going to get this. And then it always sucked because you'd have X number of dollars and you're like, I really want this. And I really want this. And I really want this. but you could never make the math work where you get all three. So I always had to leave one on the table. You're like, fuck, this sucks, dude. And then you end up talking to your buddy like, hey man, you go buy this because I got these two. And then we tried trading a couple of times, and it never worked because the cassette would get broken. You know, it seems like the cassette would always break on your watch. Oh, yeah. You always felt like a piece of shit for busting. Then you had to replace it. You had to buy theirs. But then you got a couple of years later, you get the double cassette deck. So then you start running a fucking smuggling ring.
Oh yeah. We were.
Oh my god.
Even with my Sony, we went to radio. I got to take my dog out. I left the doors open and she's in here and she knows I got to take her out for a piss.
My dog for a whiz.
All right, I'm back. All right, Voodoo had to whiz, had to get some water. All right, Voodoo's taken care of.
Good.
You were talking about the double cassette decks, but even with my Sony, my original OG boombox, which is still at my mom's house, you know that. Jeez. It's still at my mom's house. It still works. We went down to Radio Shack and we bought cords to go into the other one, and we were trying to dupe CDs, and they sounded like shit, but we still did it. We thought it was the coolest thing. But yeah, the bootlegging of the double cassette deck, those were great days, man. You were sharing stuff. And then if you had a system set up where your friend had an album, and if you had kind of a CD, my mom had a really nice like rack mount, all these different components, you could record an album. So, you know, some of the older kids, that's where I got Van Halen. That's where I got Boston, and then the Cars and Cheap Trick. I was recording the older kids' albums that they had, and I was recording them on cassette. And that's how I got turned on to all that music. I had, bootleg copies of all that stuff.
For a short while, I was kind of like the Damone of cassette bootlegging and it was a short time period because I had the double cassette deck, right? And I was a guy who was a nerd about it. So I loved it, and I would love working on the gears. So, and I kept, every time there was a birthday or some sort of event, I would ask for cassettes. So I was starting to collect a decent amount. And then my buddies would be like, hey, you got that Quiet Riot? Yeah. Can you make me a copy? Bring me a nice blank one. Bring me a blank cassette. Make it a good one, because if I'm gonna make the copy, I want it to be nice.
Get a good chrome.
Get a good chrome.
Cassette.
Get a TDK chrome. Make it a good one. They say, all right, stop by. Next time I see you, I have it. Okay, cool. And then I said, next time I see you, I'll have your copy. Okay. So I was doing that, and then it became like, can you get me 2112 from Rush? I'm like, well, I'm not a real Rush guy, but a little too drummy. I said, but I got a buddy down the street who's got 2112. Well, can you get with him? Well, yeah, but it's going to be a little something for him, because I got to ask him. You see, I got the ask. So there's a little inconvenience for me. So I get the ask in there, and then I got to get your cassette.
You're running a bootleg.
So then so I got things. Dude, I was burning so many fucking cassettes. I should be in jail. But I mean, come on, man. What are you supposed to do? You're like 15 and you don't have money for all that shit. I know. If you're an artist, you're like, fuck you, asshole. People have been stealing music forever. I just want to point that out.
CDs nuts. Had to.
I had to. You know what? I kind of don't really remember. I got to be honest. But I do remember replacing Appetite for Destruction. I had to replace on cassette. I had it on cassette. I wore it out. I had to buy another cassette. And then it was time to convert. I bought a nice stereo because I'd had a job. I was working, so I had a little more money. So I went out and bought a decent stereo system. I got a CD player, some nice speakers, and I bought Appetite again. You're welcome, Slash. I probably bought a house for the guy by now. And I got it on CD. And I remember in 1991, and this sticks out because I bought the For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge album from Van Halen. Came out in 91. And I think that's when I bought my real CD player, man. And that was like in a stack. I bought like probably 15, 20 CDs at that time because I finally had a good stereo system. It actually had something good. So that was in the stack. I don't remember first,
That was what every kid wanted. I mean, of course, when normal kids, not me, You got your learner's permit at 16, and then some kids were fucking driving at 17, and then their parents bought them a car at 18. Like I didn't have any of that. That just wasn't my path in life. But before you even thought about owning a car, everybody wanted a CD. Everybody wanted a stereo system.
Yeah.
You know, like that was your biggest thing. Because by that time, you probably already were on like maybe your third or fourth bicycle, and it didn't matter. You just needed some kind of a bicycle for a mode of transportation. So you had a bike, and I think the biggest thing that everybody wanted, like your most expensive thing before a car, was a CD system or a sound system, and I'm talking about the separate rack mount. You get the receiver, you get the cassette player, you got the turntable, you got the separate speakers, you got one in each corner of your room, right? Yep. You got them facing your bed, you got to get extra, you got to go Radio Shack. Radio Shack was the best, guys. Radio Shack was absolutely the bomb. They had every patch cord, every speaker wire, they had everything you needed. The nerd back there with his little cutoff burlap tie knew everything that you needed. It was awesome. But yeah, you had to get all this extra speaker wire because you had to have those speakers in opposing corners in your little bedroom to make sure that you were getting the best sound. I told you that my last album was 1990, and I know that people owned CDs before that. That's immediately after I bought that album is when I got a CD player. So it's 1990, and I don't really have a great reason for this. The album is already 9 years old. My first CD is Billy Squier, Don't Say No.
Holy shit.
It's already, but I just never had it on anything. My sister never had it on anything, but fucking Billy Squier. That album, In the Dark, The Stroke, My Kind of Lover, Lonely as the Night.
Huge.
What an amazing album. 1981, for some reason, between my sister and me, we never had a physical copy of that. I thought that was as good as album as any to start my CD collection. So that was the first CD that I bought, completely random.
That is random. But you know what? I think I did the same thing. I started just picking up shit I didn't have on cassette. But then I was like, okay, because then you were caught in this weird moment, because you're in this moment in time where, okay, I bought this kick-ass $800 or whatever the hell the system was that you had to buy with the big tower speakers and shit. It's like, fuck, man, okay, well, CDs are badass. They're the new hotness. Cassettes, old and busted. You know what I mean? So it's like, do I want to spend my time and my money replacing my cassettes because I can still listen to them? Or do I go out and buy other shit? So that's probably where your Billy Squier purchase came in. You're like, well, fuck, I don't want to just go out and spend money on shit I already got, because that doesn't feel new then. It feels weird. Eventually, that's what I ended up doing. I ended up going and replacing everything. But yeah, that's crazy, dude. But going back to your CD towers, I still got this. I'm looking at the speakers. My speakers from fucking 1990 when I bought my stereo system. I still got the speakers. They still sound amazing. All the components are shit. They're gone. They all blew out or melted down.
You still have the speaker? What kind of speakers are they?
They're just Sony's, and they fucking sound amazing. Still,
really?
To this day. Yes. I don't know why or how. And I've moved them across the country 10 times. But dude, if you were going to go full on like me, you didn't just run your fucking speaker wire and tuck it under a corner. You pulled the molding back and you ran that shit like a pro behind the molding. You put the molding.
Well, I'm in the basement. I got a drop ceiling, so I'm running wires that way. I'm going up, over, and then down. So yeah, I had it. Yeah, I didn't have speaker wires all over too. But then after a while, but the first system that I bought, it was a Fisher. And that seemed like a really cool name. It was black.
Yeah.
So all the components were black, because most of them were silver back then. But my mom's system upstairs was awesome. I mean, it had the VU needles for the cassette. I mean, she had a reel to reel like you have back there.
That's cool.
you know, we had other physical forms. You know, 8-tracks weren't huge in my house, but there were 8-tracks around that my parents had. My dad had an 8-track player, and then we had reel-to-reels. They had store-bought. I'm pointing to your screen, but my mom still has at the house a Tom Jones Live, an album of Tom Jones Live, but it's on reel-to-reel. Just like you bought an album or a cassette, they sold albums in reel form. Wild.
When you watch Pulp Fiction, right, and you see Uma Thurman and she strings up the Urge Overkill, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon.
Yep.
That's how a lot of music came for a short period of time. It was a pain in the ass, but it sounded great. If you still find that shit, it sounds amazing. But yeah, fuck, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something else. Shit. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
So, all right. So now we've gone 45, album, cassette, CD. Do you remember the first time? Because everything that we've talked about is what you would say is a physical copy. And, you know, going all the way back to our discussion about the 45, you know, now I own that Styx song, Come Sail Away. I can play it anytime I want. Lost on today's kids because you have anything you want, anytime you want, and you can listen to it as many times as you want because you have the internet. Still to this day, preferring to own the physical copy of something that I own. It was a big deal for me. I definitely remember my first digital purchase.
Really?
Yes. Because it was weird. I'm like, what? But where is it? Like, do I own it? Is it mine? What the fuck? What? What's going on right now? What do you mean I own it? I just bought this?
Yeah.
Amy Winehouse.
Oh, really?
Rehab.
Great song.
Amy Winehouse, Rehab, 2007. It was the first, because if you think about it, everybody that got an iPod, you started converting all of your music into your iPod, you know? So you ripped your CDs into iTunes, and then it went into your iPod, and that's how you carried your music around. It's like, oh, great, all my CDs are in here. That was before Apple Music existed, and they made that music available on their platform. The only thing you could do with an iPod was load it up full of music.
Right.
You know, now, of course, you could, you know, MP3s shortly came out and you could do all of that. But the first iPods, you had to load in your music. So I was loading in music, and for some reason, I just didn't want to buy that Amy Winehouse or whatever. And I digitally purchased it in 2007.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't think I bought anything digitally until probably a couple of years ago. Seriously.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. And I think you know what? After going through what we've just gone through, you know, we're lucky. Gen X is lucky. We got to go through all those phases, all those waves. But then there's a flip side to it. You know how many times I bought the same fucking thing over and over again?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of brilliant, on the band's part, and they're kind of hoping that something else, or they're hoping that that's why. I mean, I did buy. You said you used the example already, Appetite. So I bought what you can buy in stores now, Appetite on vinyl, and I think I paid $35 for it.
Yeah,
and all that is it's just the CD that's been burned to an album, you know? So yeah, I probably have a cassette. I probably had the album back in the day. I had a cassette. No, I never had the album. So I had a cassette, I had a CD, I had a couple of CDs. And then I went out and bought a $35, $40 Appetite album when vinyl became hip again.
Yeah, see,
so it's not an original pressing. It's not as cool.
I had two cassettes. I had the CD and I have the album. Okay. I have probably bought / at least 2 hats at this point. Like, that's what I mean. So when it came down to the digital thing, I'm older, I'm wiser. I've been in radio too. So I'm getting a lot of music coming my way. I don't have to buy a lot of shit. The new shit comes out, you always grab the CD because they always had promotional CDs. So I got racks of CDs over here with stickers on them from radio stations. That's cool. So I didn't have to buy shit. So when it came down to digital stuff, I held out and I kept buying CDs and the physical copy. Because I'm like you. I want that. I want that tangible. I want to look at the lyrics. I want to fucking follow the bouncing ball. I want to enjoy the whole process. The artist took the time. I'm going to take the time and buy the physical thing. And at that point, after being in radio for so long, everything was kind of just a single and most of the albums kind of blew. So it was pretty rare when I'd actually buy any music at that point. Plus, we were always listening to music at the radio station. By the time I got home, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to listen to anything. So I had that time period where I just didn't give a shit at home. Then I started going, okay, well, I like this band. I like this band. And I was like, fuck them. I'm not buying this digital shit. No way. They've already got me buying Appetite 4 different times. I've bought so many other albums a million times. I'm like, I'm holding out. And I kept buying CDs. But then I started ripping them in. So I kept ripping them all in. And I had so many fucking CDs. It took me forever. And I'd rip them all in. So I got all this music now on my laptop or wherever. And it took me years to finally fucking pull the trigger. But you know what it was? It was a couple of years ago. Wolfgang Van Halen's song came out. And there were no CD copies, and I loved The Distance when it came out. I fucking loved that song. So I'm like, you know what? Let me buy it. I fucking waited till 2.5 years ago to buy my first digital copy of anything.
It wasn't even that long ago, dude.
A year and a half, maybe?
Yeah, a year and a half.
Maybe. That's it. Yeah. Because if there was a song I liked, I knew it was like bubblegum. I'd like it. I'd burn through it, and then I'd be done with it. So I just watched it on YouTube whenever I was home, crank it up. That was it. I don't buy the shit. I just don't. If there's something I really like, then I'll buy the physical copy. But I've downloaded a couple of songs since then just because I'm lazy. Or I knew the rest of the album was shit. So then I'll buy it. But yeah, I don't really fuck with the digital thing still. Just don't.
iTunes sucks. Like I know they want it to go away because they just want you to do Apple Music where they don't have everything. No. I can't get this through Alex's brain on the show. He's like, just have Apple Music, dude. They got everything you want. Like, no, they don't have everything that I want. Okay. Like I want stuff. Okay. I want weird fucking Canadian shit that, that you've never heard of before. Like Apple Music doesn't have Coney Hatch. So I'm loading all this stuff. iTunes is just, they're not updating it. It sucks. It sucks. I'm loading in all these fucking songs into my iTunes, right? From CDs. I'm taking the time to rip them in there. And then I go to my iPod. There it is. It's listed. Of course, no fucking album artwork. They don't care anymore. And then I go searching for this stuff. Then I go to hit the song and it just turns gray. I'm like, what? Why isn't it? I saw it rip in there. I know it's in there. They don't care. They don't care. They want it to suck.
Yep.
They want it to suck. They don't want you using that anymore. They want you to use Apple. They want you to pay the subscription, $9.99 a month, to use their library. People don't understand when I tell them they don't have everything. Okay. Yeah. They got fucking Old Town Road. I know. Great. Knock yourself out. They don't have shit that I want.
That's why I've gone now full circle. And now if I'm going to buy an album, it's going to be on vinyl because it's forever. Like I will go out every once in a while, every few months.
But no portability. You can't take that running with you. You can't take that to the beach, and that's, I've got a sound system throughout my house, and then I can work it off of my iPod. And it's just the music. It's just terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah. You get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to buy albums anymore unless it's on vinyl. And I'm only going to buy things that I know are going to be great because unfortunately now I'm going to have to convert from CD over to vinyl because I'm replacing I'm not getting rid of my CDs, but I'm replacing now and going full circle back to vinyl. So it's like, but I'm doing it for two reasons. A, it's mine and it's a vinyl and I put it on, I listen to the whole thing and I might discover some songs I forgot about. Also, my kids are going to have vinyl then. They're going to have this shit. It ain't going anywhere.
They're not going to want your dumb shit.
No, they're going to want it. They're going to want it. They will. It'll come around. It'll come around. But yeah, no, the digital thing, I just can't get into it. And you know what we sound like? A couple of old fuckers.
Absolutely.
Blue, get off my lawn, Blue. That's what it is. We just sound like old bitches because it's convenient. It's fucking so convenient to download shit and put on your phone.
Well, I got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
This was a good list, huh? This was a good list today.
This was cool, man. It was different. It was very very odd because I discovered on this podcast the reason how I dove into Van Halen. I discovered how I became a Van Halen fan today. You saw it unfold in real time. I didn't know until I started
Thanks,
talking
Mom.
about it. I'm like, holy shit. And it really wasn't even that 1984 album. I liked it. It didn't make me a super fan, but then it all came around and there you go. It's crazy. I've learned shit today about me I didn't even realize. Fucking
like a
podcast.
therapy session.
It's like people should be making signs of this podcast more often. This is great.
Oh, signs.
Good idea.
Final thought, Jason Ginty.
You know what? We talked about it a lot today. Mardi Gras was great. But then as I was sitting here yesterday, kind of winding down from all the madness of the last couple of weeks of Mardi Gras and feeling good about how great Mardi Gras was, how just like, it just felt good to be human again. In New Orleans, from this point forward until like end of July is like festival, party, festival, band, festival, party. You know, New Orleans is back now, man. It's on. And I cannot wait for the next couple of months to go through here, man, because it's just going to be one thing after the next. So if you're thinking about coming to New Orleans, start looking at calendars because there's going to be a shit ton of things happening the next couple. I mean, we're like 10 days away or whatever it is from some St. Patrick's Day parades. Now, St. Patrick's Day parades in New Orleans are fucking crazy. They're just like Mardi Gras, only people are way drunker on the floats. So it's just from here on out for the next couple of months, it's just a nonstop, almost every weekend, something crazy is happening. And it's been a while since we've done that. So I can't wait. I just cannot wait. So book your trip to New Orleans. Come on down. Yo, what's up? We'll see you. That's it. That's all I got.
I posted something a little weird. It just came out tonight. It just hit tonight. I thought it was funny just because I think Smash Mouth is such a punchline of just horrible music, but it's a moment of time. And it's, you know, I didn't know the lead singer was as sick as he was because I remember them catching some shit for playing down in or up in Sturgis when, you know, COVID was, you know, red hot and, you know, there was a couple of bands and I remember them catching some shit that it was Smash Mouth, you know, and people were making jokes like you're risking your life to go to a Smash Mouth show. But I know those songs are big for people. I didn't know the singer was sick and apparently really sick that he retired from the band. And this is where Smash Mouth is on my meter. Apparently he retired and I didn't know that he retired. Some guy saw that he retired and I put they have a new song on. It's a cover song, but it's a new singer. And I included the article from Loudwire on our Playpants, Facebook page. So you can listen to the song. A guy sent an email to somebody in the band and just said, hey man, I can sing. I got a dad bod. I got bad 90s tattoos. If you're looking for a lead singer, I think I can do it. He sent a fucking email like you sent an email to the guy at the Tux Parade.
Right.
A guy sent an email to a guy in Smash Mouth and he contacted him. He is now the lead singer of Smash Mouth. He shoot your shot, everybody. My final thoughts, shoot your shot. This guy sent an email and now he's a singer of Smash Mouth. They put out a cover. It's pretty horrible. And it's Rick Astley, Never Gonna Give You Up.
Why would you do that?
But the only reason why I put it out there is to listen to his voice and you can hear it. He doesn't sound exactly like Steve, but you can hear his voice. You hear Smash Mouth putting their take on this song. He's going to sound good on those songs.
Yeah,
I think he's going to sound good on those songs. That's on our Playpants Facebook page. So I don't normally drop new music on our stuff, but it was more about shooting your shot. Jason Ginty wanted to be in the Tux Parade, and he called up the leader of the parade that he liked. And next thing you know, he's the captain of a ship. Dad bod over here with the bad 90s tattoos asked if he could be the lead singer of a Smash Mouth, and they said, sure. And now he's in the band.
I'm telling you, man, you know,
dude, there's money to be made. There's big corporate money to be made. Smash Mouth. Those are huge songs. the fucking Shrek songs, all of that. Those are huge songs. There are companies that will pay them $100,000 to come and play a private event, probably more than that.
Yeah.
Now that they know that it's not the original singer, it doesn't matter. It's still Smash Mouth. If you can put that logo on at your casino that Smash Mouth is playing, nobody gives a shit. Nobody researches who's in what bands anymore. They can still get corporate money and they can play gigs. They can make a good living. Smash Mouth can make a good living.
Dude, look what Journey's been doing the last 15 years. There's nobody in the band anymore.
Journey's a massive, massive band. So,
right.
You know, I brought up Mark before, Mark Petrocelli. You know, he tours with Foghat. The only guy in that band is the drummer, Foghat, right. You know, and it's all these players that have been in it a long time. They sound great and everything. But if you're at a casino and they're using that logo and it's Foghat, fuck, you don't care who's in the band. You want to hear some Foghat songs. Yep. You know, Foreigner. Lou Reed hasn't been in Foreigner in 25 years.
Journey.
But Foreigner still plays.
Yeah.
Journey went out and did something different, and they maintained that level of hugeness. Journey is definitely the exception to that story for sure.
Right. But same concept. It's a bunch of dudes. You don't even know who they are, but nobody seems to care, you know, but it's Journey. So people who are Journey fans, they're not as in depth into the music, like say you and I, or people who listen to this podcast, who are going to drill down a lot more because, you know, they want to know, hey, is the Journey guy singing? Is Steve Perry singing? Or is it some dude that they found on YouTube? It's some dude.
No original members are in Quiet Riot. Everyone's dead.
Yep.
Everyone's dead. They must have paid Rudy Sarzo all kinds of money to come back because he's the face on that Mental Health album, even though he didn't really record the stuff, but he's the guy that's in the videos and stuff. So he is the bass player now. And at least it's like, okay, there's something there, but singer, guitar player, drummer, no one's around. The guitar player is alive, but Carlos Cavazza is not involved with it.
Right.
But yeah, there's bands that are out there with absolutely nobody in the band. It's just they're keeping that name going, you know, and it's
a product.
All right,
it's
that
a
was
product.
It. The Smash Mouth. Go listen to the cover song.
Shoot
the guy's
shot.
voice it's not horrible, but yeah, he shot. You know, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, Jason Ginty.
You know, my mom used to tell me from a very young age, she's like, what's the worst they're going to tell you? No. And did you lose anything? No. Did you gain anything? No, but you could if you ask. You got to just ask. The worst thing they're going to tell you is no. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, shit, shoot your shot, dude. I want to see a lot of shots being shot over the next week. Not, you know, not into your socks, you know what I'm saying? But like around your, you know, okay, that's enough. All right. Follow us on Playpants Pod, Twitter, Facebook, our YouTube channel, like, subscribe, and of course, visit piratesofthequarter.com. When you go to New Orleans this spring, and you will go to New Orleans this spring, make sure you save out a couple of hours to go take the pirate tour around the French Quarter. You're going to have a blast. And then Rod, you got to start making plans. You got to get your ass up back to New Orleans sooner than later.
I will. I'm definitely coming back sooner than later.
Excellent.
It's always been, it's been in my DNA, but it's just, now I just got to get back more often. So, and Excellent. It's good. My kid loves it. So that's all good news.
That helps. All right. That's enough.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Let's go. It's time. Put on Playpants.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts. See us on our YouTube channel and follow our social media pages at Playpants Pod.